Hi, and welcome to Filmmakers Compass Podcast, a show where we talk about movies and, well, more movies. I'm D-Man, joined by CP, and CP, we are back.
We're back.
I'm super excited. I'm glad to be podcasting again. We took a little summer hiatus here, and we actually did get a chance to meet up in person, and we're going to tell a couple stories about what we actually did. And more than that, we have quite a few topics that we got to dive into because a lot of things have happened since the last time we were podcasting. So, CP, how are you doing?
I'm exhausted, man. I don't know about you. It's been a busy month.
Yes, indeed. I know for my work, I have been traveling. I've been filming graduations. I'm actually going to be going to Ohio, so I might be podcasting from out of state. And keep an eye on that for future podcasts. And we actually had the pleasure of hosting my mom and my sister out here in California. They came to visit. So shout out to them at the top of the episode. I wanted to say it was so much fun having you guys out here. They came out here to go to a wedding. And more than that, we actually all got to meet up together, which was really fun.
Oh, dude, it was fun. Just was a bummer. It was so short. We only had an afternoon, but
it was an afternoon, but it was really cool because we got to go to a winery and just, enjoy the Southern California landscape, which was fantastic.
Yep.
So now to that end, I want to say to my mom and my sister, I hope during your travels, you had the FCP podcast on, both on plane rides, on the ride to the airport, whatever you're doing. I hope you're listening to the show. So, and I hope you enjoyed the show. But I do know for a fact my mom did listen, and she did give me a shout out, which, she said, I love the show, and you guys are just so great together. So,
well, that's good to hear. And she didn't have any comments about you rocking. I guess you stopped, so that's good.
Yeah, we're all good. But also, CP, I got to give you a massive shout out. Since our last episode that we recorded live, it has been your birthday. So I wanted to say happy birthday to you.
My 29th birthday.
Yes, 29. Wow.
Yeah.
We attended school together, but clearly not the same grade.
No. I think I skipped a little bit, but thanks, man. It's weird. Been a while since then. I had a funeral, one trip out of state, another trip out of state on both coasts a bit, and finally back in SoCal. Just in time for summer to start.
You and I have been trying to connect here to get the podcast back up and regular, and I'm excited because we are finally engaged. So, I'm excited to talk about a few things. Now, I want to go ahead and jump into the show because there's something I want to talk about.
Oh, I know you want to talk about.
Is just eating at me because I have to talk about it because it just happened and I haven't got a chance to really get it out there yet. But Apple just announced their new XR, AR, VR, augmented reality, virtual reality headset called Vision Pro. Now, why is that important to a podcast about filmmaking and movies?
I don't know, D-Man. Why is that important for a podcast about filmmaking and movies?
Well, they had a really great segment, little clip in their promotional video where they obviously positioned this new device as a entertainment consumption device, meaning you get to watch movies in XR. So it was really fascinating because, right now, the market position leader in VR, AR is probably Meta or Facebook, if you don't know what Meta is. And the Quest 2 Pro headset, or Quest 2, and then they have a Quest 2 Pro, I think, as well. Don't they? They just introduced something like that. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know what Meta's doing.
I don't think Meta knows what they're doing either.
Yeah, I think they're really running into some problems because I think they just announced like the Quest 3, there's like the Quest 2 Pro, the Quest 2. And for anybody that's not, I guess, already logged into VR here, these are VR headsets. You literally take a set of goggles, you place them over your eyes, and you're transported into the world of virtual reality. And Meta, Facebook is kind of the market leader. I believe they have roughly 80% of the market of headsets, and rightfully so. I own a Quest 2, and CP, you've used my Quest 2, correct?
Yeah, I have.
What did you think?
I mean, my problem with VR up until this point is it's fun, but it still feels very gimmicky. I'm like, okay, cool. I can jump in and I can play some cool VR game. But until what Apple really laid out here, it's always felt like, something you do in little half-hour segments. And finally, Apple looks like someone sees VR for the true potential that could be, which is how do we integrate all these existing technologies and the things you currently do in your life into one virtual workspace? And it looks like they're cracking that code.
Yeah, I really agree with you on that sentiment, which is that if you've ever used a Quest 2, it feels very much like a gaming device. It is literally probably what most people do with the Quest 2 is play games. It's an Xbox, it's a PlayStation, it's, a Nintendo Switch alternative, right? And unfortunately, what that means is that it's a really kind of, like you said, I won't call it gimmicky, but maybe a novelty device. It's nice to have. It's fun if you're into that, but they've not built any killer applications that really require you to be like, I need that. Like, I need it. It will enhance either my business or whatever it is, how I work out, how I do this. You know what I mean? Like they just haven't built in that need. And so what's really interesting here is Apple, with their new Vision Pro headset, has laid out their roadmap for how they see XR, AR, VR, all of those R's. And yeah. And I don't know that in their roadmap today, they've also laid out that kind of killer app where you're like, I have to have that. But what Apple has done really well is they did not position their headset as a gaming device. They positioned it as a device where you can use all the apps you're already familiar with on, say, your iPhone or iPad or even your Apple Watch, right? And as Apple does with their ecosystem, I'm assuming the headset, having not used it, integrates amazingly with all other Apple devices.
I would think so.
That's their MO. But they literally showed it off by showing apps like Messages and FaceTime.
Right. So all the people who do not rush out to spend $3,500 on a headset are not going to be left behind. They can still engage with their cool rich friends who are in XR.
Right. And I think that's the two, really, to me, when you look at this whole new kind of platform space, those are the two things that Apple really needed to nail here, which is one, don't position this as a gaming device, position it as an everyday use device. And then two, how do you take that device and make it something that if you don't have one, you can still engage with and be a part of whatever's happening in that world. And I think Apple did both of those things really well, because when it does come to, like you said, the gimmicky features of something like the Quest 2, what I have noticed is that it just does not really play well with anything else. It's kind of like, if you want to get your text messages, it might give you a notification, but you can't text back. Or if you want to make a call, you can download some third-party app, but it doesn't have any sort of native calling feature. It does between headsets, but not between what if I wanted to call? What if I'm in my Quest 2 and I want to call you?
Yeah.
Can't do it. Doesn't work.
The other problem I always had with all the VR platforms up until now is they'd say, hey, you have a virtual workspace, but your virtual workspace is just like me sitting at a desk with a laptop. It's like, why don't I just sit at a desk in a laptop in real life and save myself $500? In no way am I truly encouraged and inspired to go into this virtual realm to work, because I can work more effectively, more efficiently, and faster. It's the same. In fact, it feels clunkier because you're doing tasks that you would normally do without the ease of being able to just do them as you regularly do them.
Yeah. And then there's limitations the existence of the technology to kind of bring a keyboard into that world and be able to type as efficiently as you would type on just a laptop. It's very unlikely that you're going to be as good in a virtual world typing as you would be on just your laptop.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, literally a diminishing return because
Yep.
you're like, hey, I'm not being as efficient. And I agree. The value prop should be, this should be so empowering that it's almost like, how could you work without it?
Yep.
And it just hasn't gotten there yet. And even though there's, kind of that prospect of all these virtual screens and all this stuff, even that, again, it's like you try to put things on different screens and the gimmicky nature of it comes back in where like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work,
Mm-hmm. Sometimes
sometimes.
there's buffering and connectivity
Yeah, I was
issues.
gonna say there's like, yeah, like it literally is like super pixelated or it doesn't, I don't, you're kind of like, I don't know. And that's where Apple truly excels. That's where they kind of make the difference. And I think they did the right thing by starting off with familiarity in their new operating system. So I know during their presentation, they were talking about, oh, you can use like Microsoft applications and Teams and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are things that people use every day, right? We have to
Yep.
use them at work. I know
Yep.
I use them at my work and, they're very valuable. They're a part of my, workflow.
Yep.
So by introducing those into their ecosystem and keeping things familiar, I think people would be more than willing to at least try it out. Now, CP, you did mention, I want to get your thoughts here. $3,500 for this new Vision Pro. That is pretty expensive.
That's like really expensive.
An
I mean,
iPhone is what, like 1,000, maybe a little over 1,000.
yeah,
So $3,500, that's the starting point. I think that's a little high for mass consumer adoption. I just don't think people have $3,500 for, a cool headset. And clearly, like I said, I don't think Apple yet has quite delivered that application that it's like, I can't live without it. Like I gotta
well,
have it.
and I think the difference too is what Apple just did is they changed the game. They just kind of rubbed this in Meta's face and they're like, look, this is what VR is going to look like in the future. But I mean, as you said, this is out of touch of most people. This is not democratized yet. This is them laying the groundwork and changing the conversation of they're going to be the leaders in the space. They did not present the iPhone, something that was obtainable
Yeah.
and an instant game changer. And everyone was like, I need to go out and buy that now because it does everything that I currently need to do, plus all these other things in a better way than any other phone out there.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you here. I think obviously that price point is maybe intentional by Apple to maybe even limit the accessibility of the device because maybe they're like, this is a Gen 1 and we don't honestly want it in everyone's hands yet. Because if it is, and it's a bit of a, maybe it's not refined and it's a letdown a little bit, they're like, we don't want that. We want it in the hands of people who are going to use it and figure out all these cool new things you can do with it. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And Apple, like they have done in the past, they're introducing a kind of a new user interface. So you go back, Apple actually introduced the mouse. They introduced the click wheel on the iPod. They
Mm-hmm.
introduced multi-touch on the iPhone and then by extension the iPad and even the watch. And now they're calling it spatial OS or spatial operating system. And what they're talking about is being able to use your eyes, hands, and voice to be able to navigate a virtual world. So no controllers in your hands, unlike the Quest 2, where you have to have
Mm-hmm.
two controllers. Now, that's not 100% necessary all the time. You can navigate the Quest with just hand gestures, but it does come with two controllers, and obviously that's the easiest way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Apple is foregoing the need for controllers. I will note, though, that oddly enough, this is very un-Apple like, but they did have a cable to a battery
Mm-hmm.
that goes into your pocket. That did not seem
Mm-hmm.
very Apple like to me.
No, not really.
But what's really important and why I'm bringing all this up on our show is Disney actually had a segment within the presentation where they talk about Disney Plus in the Vision Pro. And it was fascinating because they literally took something like, say, The Mandalorian. Let's say you're watching an episode of The Mandalorian in the Vision Pro. What was really neat is you can kind of pull out and interact with virtual things. So like you can literally like pull out and explore a 3D version of the planet that the Mandalorian is on. you can see and explore, maybe go inside and actually take a view inside the Razor Crest and the ship and do things that are actually, it's kind of really cool, very interactive, and an interesting way to look at how you can kind of tell stories in this new future vision of virtual reality. So what did you think? Do you see that as like gimmicky or the future?
I see that as totally gimmicky. And the point being, there's added cost, there's added creativity and development associated with doing those things. And I think initially there will be a couple people who are going to be all about it.
Okay.
But I think as we see this play out over time, I think people are going to be like, yeah, it's cool doing it once or twice. But I don't think from a user interface experience, users are going to be compelled to check out every single world and explore every single, thing in the way that, you do it once or twice and you've done it, right? You've scratched that itch. Also, there's only a few places of content where you would even really want to, maybe going to Middle Earth, maybe going to the Star Wars universe, things like that. But
you are enticing me right now. But
yeah, but I think beyond that, the next Mission Impossible movie will just say, okay, cool. I understand it takes place in Dubai. Cool.
Yeah, because hear you.
No,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well,
I was
going
to say it has that tendency to feel a little bit like 3D movies.
Right. And the other problem is this. What about all the legacy content that's out there? Are people really truly going to spend the cost to go back and develop and curate content specifically for VR? I mean, think about with DVDs, right? There was kind of a push when the DVD boom sort of hit in like the year 2000, where people were going back and collecting old deleted scenes or old interviews and putting them on, but they didn't do it with everything. There's a lot of old Howard Hawks movies that just are a movie, and that's all that played on the DVD. There were no special features at all. So I feel like since the content library within XR is going to be such a mix of content that embraces this technology and content that doesn't, I think the lowest common denominator of cost will win out, and people won't end up putting in the added time and energy into making specialized content.
Interesting.
That's my thought.
No, I mean it's a fascinating, because it's an opportunity, right, to see if you can kind of enhance storytelling and interactivity with the stories and characters that you're actually, exploring. But at the same time, you're right. Like, we've seen this with, bonus features on DVD that have kind of, those aren't really around anymore. We've seen 3D TVs. It was a bit of a novelty. They were kind of cool. Even 3D movies in general, not just TVs, that novelty kind of wore off, where it was like, I mean, they're cool. Even Avatar 2 just came out, and it, 3D still has a place, but at one time 3D was literally like they were converting almost any movie that came out to 3D. And then it ended up that everybody was like, yeah, but we don't really want that. Like, we don't need it. Now, that, again, not to say that we won't, accept an Avatar 2 or some cool new thing every once in a while, but when you're looking at, the gimmicky novelty nature of it, it's kind of like, hey, we don't need that for every movie.
Agreed.
So you may be right. Like, as cool as that looks, it may end up that it's, something that we'll look back on this presentation video, in the Wayback Machine and, those old YouTube videos, and we'll be like, wow, I can't believe we thought that was the future of movies.
Yeah, right.
But then again, there is an opportunity, depending on how many of these headsets Apple can sell over the future generations, of transforming the way that we actually consume media. So right now we watch everything on screens, but Apple's positing that maybe what will happen is we'll end up watching it kind of in this spatial operating system of, the screen will be wherever you are, and it can be as big as you want it to be. So I think even in their presentation, they showed an example of like, making a movie screen, 100 feet big, even though hypothetically, if you can wrap your head around this, that doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like just how you're experiencing the space you're in. it
Yeah.
feels big, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is big, right? It's still just goggles on your face.
Yep.
They are talking about kind of transforming the way that we consume movies. So I am interested to see in the future. I didn't see anything about this today. I believe it'll be obviously possible in the future, and Apple probably already is experimenting with this. But like, if you and I were in the same room and we both put on a pair of goggles, we would be able to share a giant screen in whatever space we're in and be able to watch the same movie with, each of us having our own pair of goggles. I could see that as being interesting because
I have a very different viewpoint on this than you do.
Okay.
So first of all, have you watched movies using your current like Quest headset?
Indeed, I have. And you know what? It's been a very poor experience.
Why has it been a poor experience?
First of all, like you said, the headsets themselves are a little bit heavy. They're clunky. So the physical experience of having to watch a movie in VR is not necessarily conducive to the way you would sit on your couch and watch a screen, right? Mm-hmm. It's a little bit clunky. It's kind of weird. But more than that, we're talking about mostly quality issues. Compatibility. I can't watch the actual movies that I want to watch. And when I do get the movies to work, there's often lag or they're pixelated or it doesn't look very high quality. And to that end, you're like, it definitely does not, supplant the experience I have of just watching the screen I have in my living room. So if you're asking, do I think it's superior in its current form? No, because I have a Quest headset. And yet the last time I watched a movie, I watched it on my TV.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. And I think while it might be, again, cool to be able to experience, an IMAX movie in your backyard with your headset, I think that's going to become a rarer and rarer thing. And the reason just why is I think when do we watch television / movies in our own home? There's a social aspect, which yes, I get that the headset enables this better than other devices, but you also aren't going to sit there with your friends and watch the Super Bowl on it when, people are over and you're going to be drinking and eating it. Like it's not very practical, right?
Yes.
There's something in between your interaction with human beings, which is this thing on your head.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I don't know about you, but watching TV at home, well, maybe I'm laying in bed, maybe I'm cooking dinner. I'm not going to be wearing a headset when I'm doing that. Sometimes part of the reason why I put on the TV is I want to put down the phone and be away from the devices and play with my dog and have something on in the background. And again, I'm not going to do that as I'm wearing this big freaking headset. And I think that, this $35 device is not going to replace people's TVs in their mind.
$3,500. And yes, I actually agree with you because unless it's actually going to remove the physical screen, the TV from your living room, I feel like people will default to the TV.
Right, because it's just there. It's easy. It's cheaper. It's been there. That's what we're used to. We've been doing that now for 4 generations.
Yeah, and let's face it, Apple themselves even makes Apple TV.
Yeah, right.
So, they're a part of that ecosystem. So I don't even know if they're actually trying to, get rid of that altogether. But I do agree with you in terms of, hey, there might be some place for consuming interactive content, but will this headset truly replace how we enjoy movies? And I have to agree with you. I'm guessing the answer is no. It'll be another option, which is great. But will it transform and change the way we do it? Probably not. Just like we say, hey, we're going to go watch this movie on the big screen. We will probably still go watch it on a big screen. So, which is interesting. But I have to say, based on, just what I saw from Apple's headset and their vision of kind of how they want to lay this out, I was very excited. It's definitely a headset that I would love to try out. Now, CP, are you going to end up in an Apple store putting a headset on and giving this a go?
Oh, I know that will absolutely happen because I'll probably be with you and you'll drag me into an Apple store and say, hey, yo, you got to try this out. But of my own free will, I'm not going to just drive down to one and be like, yeah, let's try out VR. But
I absolutely will drive down.
Well, our audience knows I'm much more of a Luddite than you are. You're the tech guy. I'm the not tech guy.
Like, I'm so excited to just get a pair of these on and try it out. Like, I think Apple laid out, a great kind of vision for the future and a really good foundation for what they're working on. Obviously they showed examples. I think this headset has full color pass through, so you can literally see your environment around you. I'm not sure how they do it, but it looks like the outward facing version of the goggles. So, like, if I'm wearing one and you're looking at me, is supposedly able to show my eyes, but I do not believe you're actually looking at my eyes. I think that's some sort of,
Rendering.
yeah, like, I don't think
Yeah,
that's
that's
my,
kind of the vibe I was getting.
which is kind of weird too, because then it's like artificial and it's supposed to be your eyes, which is weird. But
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to play out in
I don't know. I'd be
quote
interested to
unquote
see,
real life.
yeah, how that works. But I do have to say, in terms of owning the Quest 2 and seeing what Apple's done here, I mean, it does make me sad for Meta because they just announced their Quest 3 headset, and it just feels to me like they don't know what the answer is.
There's
So, like,
no vision and game plan here.
yeah, like, you can just see it. Like, they've already burned so much money. Like, basically, if I was an investor and I'm in on Meta, I'm like, you're gonna have to spend a lot of money trying to figure this out because you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it. I mean, Apple's ability to build hardware is just so far and above what Meta is doing. And it's interesting because even before we jumped on, the podcast here, you and I were talking a little bit about this topic, and you had brought up just a fantastic point about Facebook, which is that Facebook is on, basically every device and is an entry point to, social media and the internet for most people. For a lot of people in the world, it actually is an entry point to the internet. But
yeah,
what's interesting here is I think Mark Zuckerberg, having had to pay the Apple tax, for being in the App Store. And obviously, we actually talked about this on the podcast about how Apple implemented new privacy controls that limited Meta or Facebook's ability to advertise to people on Apple devices. I think he wants to control the platform, meaning the hardware, the actual physical headset, as well as the actual app store that people are using to access the metaverse. And so he's on this like giant quest to he's on this giant quest to try to control that ecosystem. And the irony is what they should be doing when they're building the metaverse is creating entry points for any sort of device or accessibility, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. He should be the guy rolling out the roadmap, which is this is how we interact in this virtual environment.
yep.
Access it from any technology you have. However you want to get on, get on.
Yeah, like Meta should be
But I'm
pumped
going to
that Apple just
control
released
this. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they should be pumped that this new headset is here, and they should be salivating at the opportunity to be on it. And instead, they're competing against it. And I just don't think they're on Apple's level when it comes to hardware and ecosystem development. It's just they're just not there.
No, we've seen it through all Meta's failed attempts at, the Facebook phone. They tried to roll out the Chromebooks. Like, they've never been good enough at it to surpass their rivals, Google, Apple, right?
Yep.
They've always released second tier stuff that they have to abandon because it just isn't competitive. So know what you do and do it well.
Yeah, and I feel like that's Apple's MO. That's what they do. Is they know what they do and they do it really, really well. They don't compete in every space. They're like, hey, just because artificial intelligence is hot right now and Chat GPT is out there, Apple's not rushing to be like, oh, we're there. They're like, that's not what we do.
Yeah. We'll build you the device that you're going to use to access it, but
exactly,
that's what we're going to do.
They're like, I know we're a technology company, but that's not us. And, who knows how they may integrate it in ways later to enhance their own product offerings, but they're not like, here's our version. We're just going to throw it out there and see what sticks. And I feel like, unfortunately right now, Meta seems like they're in that space where it's a little bit like, I don't know if you're going to be able to compete with this, guys.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree.
So, but anyway, CP, after this podcast, we'll throw on our goggles and watch a movie together. Even though
sounds like a plan. If it's your choice, it'll probably be a Star Wars movie.
I'll tell you what we won't be doing, CP, and that's writing a movie, because the writers are still on strike. So
That is true. That is
do you have
true.
any updates on this? Because I did read an article that was kind of fascinating and a little bit of, historical. So I'm kind of interested what your updates are and where we think this is going.
Well, I'm assuming my updates are the same as yours. Obviously, we haven't had any major movement from the writers' side. They're still entrenched and have been very vocal. They've been reaching out to streaming service stockholders and board members, encouraging them to vote down these high CEO payouts that are supposed to be coming. And they're saying, give that money to us, the creators. And I totally agree with that. Now, the crazy thing is this, and we've known about it for a little while because our friends in the guilds have told us that there is some voting going on, but we are looking at a potential triple threat of strikes with the Directors Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild, also SAG-AFTRA. I don't remember all the after letters, looking to go on strike as well, which means nobody is going to be making anything for quite some time.
And that is actually the history making thing, the trifecta that all three of the major guilds would go on strike at the same time. Apparently, this has never happened in history, although there have been a few instances where it could have potentially happened, never actually did. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean that it will here. Historically, there's no precedent for this happening, so it seems unlikely that it will, but it could. Now, I don't want to get into a whole bunch of, hyperbole or hyperbole or however you say that word. But actually, how do you say that word?
I thought it was hyperbole, but
okay, there you go. I don't know. Now we're just getting into grammar. But anyway, I don't want to just fan the flames of, burning the whole thing down. But if that were to come to pass, I mean, we're looking at, like you said, a total shutdown of production. I mean, they wouldn't be able to do anything, which is really crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously, the producer guild is not going to go on strike because the producers are some of the people that are making great money off of all these, stacked agreements. So it's really interesting to see what's going to happen, and this might be enough to really get the streamers to come back to the table and say, okay, let's figure out a way to make everybody happy. But this all really comes down to one major thing: the cost of streaming.
Yes.
And we have talked about streaming so many times over the last few months, but it just keeps becoming such an important content, conversation for as we're talking about consuming content.
I have to agree, because here's the thing, and you and I have been talking about this on this show and in just our personal conversations, at large, which is streaming has not really been profitable. They've been unable to figure out how to really make it profitable without either being a public company or outside investment, to kind of prop it up. It in and of itself just hasn't been able to be the transformative force that I think a lot of people were hoping it would be. Now, what's interesting about how this ties into the writer's strike is I think the writers particularly are like, hey, we want a bigger piece of this pie, right? We want to make sure that we preserve, at least whatever the historical percentages and norms were for television deals and all of that when it comes to streaming. Well, I think on the other side, you have these studios and these production companies and stuff that are running these streaming platforms. And they don't want to say it out loud, but they're like, we don't make a lot of money right now.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Most of these studios are not technology companies. The only streamer out there run by a technology company, well, now we have Apple Plus, and I guess we technically have Prime, but really it's Netflix. Netflix was the company that pioneered streaming. They invented these algorithms to get content in front of people who want to watch the content. Everything fell apart once they started saying, we don't need to license content anymore. We'll just start making our own. So all these non-technology companies rushed out to build streaming services. And that's where this all fell apart.
Isn't it crazy when you actually think that, like, at one time, Netflix basically just licensed content? They were willing to pay large sums of money. I mean, I think the show Friends is a great example. For 1 year of streaming, Friends exclusively, Netflix paid like $1 billion, right?
Yep.
So to Warner Brothers, or whoever it is that actually, I think it's Warner TV or whatever, who
Yeah.
owns the Friends licensing, they literally just like got $1 billion to like,
Well,
here's Friends. And instead of enjoying the fruits of the licensing agreements that offers them, instead they were like, we need our own platform. This is our golden goose, and we should have it exclusively on our own thing. So instead of taking the $1 billion and being like, this is great, we didn't even have to do anything, they're like, we're going to put in all this work and build and run and manage our own platform with Friends as one piece of content that now we don't get any money for it. We have to actually pay to host it.
yeah, isn't that crazy? I mean, I think the best example of this is what Disney has done with Disney Plus, right? Disney
Yes.
has so much legacy content that people want to watch, that's valuable, that they could have licensed their Marvel films, their Star Wars films, their ABC all these different pieces of content to whoever was the highest bidder. Didn't have to go to one specific streaming service. And I think the true gem in this was what they used to do with the Disney Vault, right? Disney would take.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you explain the Disney Vault for anybody that's not familiar with that?
So Disney would take these old classic Disney movies that everybody grew up on and loved, and they'd say, oh, we're taking it out of the vault. It's only going to be out for a limited time of 2 years. We're going to sell you the DVD for $30, $35, despite every other DVD you buy is like, 15 to 20.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're actually right. I used to work at Toys R Us, and like the highest a DVD, any movie, 5-star movie would be $20, $19.99 for the best DVD. And then you'd go, down in tiers till you got to the bargain bin. And however it's possible, Disney would come out of the vault and they would release a DVD and it would be $35, $34.99. And for some reason they could charge this premium price. So anyway, I'm just saying, when I worked at Toys R Us, it was like a big deal because they had like, Lady and the Tramps coming out, and it's Toys R Us.
And go buy it because, after 2 years, if you don't spend $35 on it, you're never going to get it again, because we're going to put it back in the vault and never bring it out. Right. And this is content people loved. We all grew up on it, or our parents grew up on it, and it wasn't readily accessible. So that money-making content that was literally printing them money, now they give you for free on Disney Plus at the cost of $7.99. At what I've seen is Disney Plus is what has cost Disney something like $10 billion since inception.
You're actually correct. I looked up that number, and that is accurate. As of their last earnings call, they've lost about $10 billion roughly.
So instead of them making money off of this valuable legacy content they have, and it's the most valuable legacy content that anyone has, right? Yeah, because they own all the great stuff from all the great different eras, Indiana Jones, all the Lucasfilm content, all the Marvel content, all the Disney Renaissance, the Disney classics, right? All these things that they own. Now they give out for free, instead of charging people millions of dollars to borrow it for a fixed amount of time, at which point Disney gets it back and gets to renegotiate who gets it.
Yeah, or you just pay to own your own slice of it, $35 to get your own DVD. So, which is crazy, because a perfect example, you just mentioned it, is this weekend, in anticipation of, the new Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny coming out this summer. Disney Plus just dropped all Indiana Jones content. They own the Lucasfilm library, and they just gave it away to to everybody who already subscribes. So basically, with the intention of it, the only profitability coming from dropping those Indiana Jones movies and content on Disney Plus being whatever net new subscribers they get out of this. And I doubt it's going to be that much. I doubt people are literally like, oh, I need to go sign up for Disney Plus because they dropped Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, it's probably unlikely.
And if you look back, I think about a month or two ago, Iger came out after his investor call and he said, yeah, we've really kind of screwed the pooch here, because all of this exclusive Disney Plus, Marvel television content that we've created, Star Wars series, really have failed to bring about new subscribers.
Yeah. And that's all, like, as a streaming platform, net new subscribers is literally all you're looking at. And when I say net new, what I mean is like every quarter you're going to lose some and gain some, and hopefully you're in the plus on that margin right there. So net new meaning like, hey, we lost 2 million but we gained 4 million, so net new 2 million, right?
Yep.
And if you're not gaining subscribers, I mean, your streaming service is dying. And I heard that, over the last, I think the first 3 months of 2023, Disney Plus lost like 4 million subscribers.
Yep.
Like, that's crazy. That means that platform is literally just bleeding for Disney.
Well, and so then on top of it, so aside from this being a money losing endeavor across the board for streaming services, the other problem is, how do you solve the problem of rights and giving out these percentages that all these creators want and they rightfully deserve? And, unfortunately, television syndication really solved a lot of problems for people, right? You got the major networks to invest a lot of money up front to build content. They bore the burden of shooting and creating television shows.
Yep.
But you had the lesser networks then come in and say, look, we need content 24/7 a day so we can run advertisements against it. We will pay you good money, not nearly as much money as it would cost for us to create our own content, to just borrow your content.
Yep.
Show it for a couple years, and we'll pay out great royalties to everybody who worked on it the first time around. And everybody was really happy with syndication. And the problem is, I don't see a syndication type model possible with streaming the way that it is.
Well, we did talk about it on this show, and I'll bring it up here because you're talking about advertising, but a lot of the streaming platforms now have added an advertising tier to their options. So I know ads are coming into the streaming service, which is, again, ironic given that it was supposed to supplant TV.
Yep.
And yet it's becoming more and more like TV. But advertising brings in the big bucks. That's where the money really is. And I guarantee you, and working in marketing, I guarantee you, even if they offer an advertising tier at like $3 versus the highest paid subscription tier, which might be $10, the advertising tier is worth more. I guarantee it.
Probably, right? Because you're getting all the ad revenue from Pepsi Cola and Coca-Cola and McDonald's.
Yep. You're going to get a ton of advertising revenue, and that will outweigh the cost of whatever people are paying in subscriptions. So I know the streaming services having, in the last year, almost all of them beginning to offer an ad tier in their paid, subscription tiers. That might solve some of this, but I don't think they're there yet. They haven't figured out that kind of perfect mix. And it's interesting when you bring up like the Disney Vault. We've seen Disney kind of experiment with the idea about doing like kind of a Disney Plus premiere where like, hey, I think they did it with like live action Mulan, where it was like, we're going to premiere the movie tonight, and it's like, whatever, $20 or something. And then you pay for premiere access, and then they add it to your content library in Disney Plus if you've paid for it. So, but you get access at the time of the premiere versus waiting for whenever it drops, for free to, Disney Plus subscribers. And I wonder if Disney maybe didn't miss an opportunity there as well to kind of really make like weekly or kind of premiere events for their platform that people would actually pay for. I think $20 sounds steep, but when you think about adding it to your content library for eternity, and then maybe having a watch party where, if you and I and, Hellison and somebody got together and we wanted to watch a movie and it was $5 for all of us, I'm pretty sure we'd do it. We're like, yeah, all right, we'll chip in for that.
No, you bring
now
up
they're just giving it all away. Like, they just dropped Indiana Jones, and it was literally, I mean, I don't even know if they put out a press release. Like, they just added it, and you see it when you load up Disney Plus, but they didn't make it like a premiere or like a big thing, and they certainly didn't implement any sort of paid options or anything. So I don't know. I feel like they might be missing an opportunity there.
No, I agree. Or it's almost like with the rollout of Disney Plus should have been designed for much leaner content, Disney Channel original movies, reruns of ABC television. And as they started to implement this more valuable Star Wars content or Marvel content or the Disney Vault stuff, maybe you treat it more like Movies Anywhere or Vudu, where you say, look,
Yeah.
hey, we're going to have it available here. And if you want it, buy your Disney classics for $3.99 each because you can only get them here.
Yeah.
And then at least, they're making the money to fulfill some of the royalty requirements on the back end and offset the cost of streaming. I don't know, because at the end of the day, the problem is with them licensing content to themselves, they are not making money off of it like they would have been if they were just licensing it to Netflix or whoever.
Well, and that's where the real crux, we go full circle here is, we do have the writers on strike. We have potential actors and directors and everybody going on strike, and streaming is a big part of where they cannot find common ground. Obviously, like you said, I think in terms of how legacy payment and everything happened, syndication being a big part of that, everybody's like, hey, we want to keep getting paid like we were getting paid. I mean, and why not? Right? Why would you ever want to give that up? And I think the streaming companies are like, we just don't have it, but they don't want to say that out loud because then that relinquishes their power, right? It looks like they have all this leverage, and yes, they do have the backing of these multinational corporations, meaning, I don't think just because Disney Plus might be in trouble, Disney's not in trouble, right? Disney can pay that. But yeah, when you look at these streaming services, it's just fascinating because I'm like, I don't know how exactly they're going to solve it, but something's going to come to a head here. And it's happening right now with these strikes. So it's fascinating to watch. And obviously, I want everybody to get paid. And I also want to watch content without ads. So
how do we solve that problem, D-Man?
Yeah. I mean, ironically, I love ads. Like, I don't know. They're very intriguing to me. Like, I like to see what works, what doesn't. I don't know. Anyway, that's a side conversation. But yeah, I work in advertising, so I'm like, I don't know. Ads fascinate me. But anyway, CP, before we head out on this episode, I was just going to ask you, have you seen any new movies? Because we haven't actually had a chance on this show to talk, straight movies that we've seen. And I have a feeling, because I follow you on social media, that you have been to the theater. So what have you seen?
I have gone recently. I did not go for a while. I went and saw Fast 10 finally. Can you believe I did not go see a Fast and Furious movie opening night?
I cannot believe that.
I can't believe that. The last time I didn't see a Fast and Furious movie opening night was probably when the Fast and the Furious came out in like 2001.
Did you get your Vin Diesel tattoo removed?
No, it's still there. I'm gonna go build it off, the whole Fast and Furious crew on my back. It's gonna be pretty
nice. Sweet. That's awesome. What'd you think?
I mean, it was exactly what you expect a Fast and Furious movie to be at this point. Just straight ridiculousness, and that's what we love about it, right?
Now, if you had,
because it's so realistic.
It's Fast 10. So out of the 10 films, where would you rank it? Like, where would you put it?
I'd probably
don't say 5.
No, probably like 4. No, I'm joking. Oh, so it's middle tier. It's middle tier, and technically there's 11 because we had Hobbs and Shaw. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. So spin-off. Okay. And anything else? Have you seen any other movies, or are there any that you're looking forward to? Because as I mentioned earlier, Indiana Jones is coming out. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'll probably see it.
Go see it, because I know I have no intention to see that, believe it or not.
Okay.
I did see. So I saw The Covenant. I think we talked about the last time we were on the podcast.
You did say that was awesome.
Awesome. Another movie almost identical to The Covenant called Kandahar came out. And
that I've not heard of that. What is that about?
It was a Gerard Butler movie. Same thing, about a CIA operative and his interpreter stranded in Afghanistan.
Oh, okay.
Trying to get out amid the
Why
civil
does this
war
happen?
that has. Well, probably because a year ago the U.S. totally botched the pull out of Afghanistan, and with the fallout and all the people who we promised that we were going to take them to the United States and make them citizens are all now they're getting killed. That's obviously great stories to tell.
Yeah, because
It's
you
good.
see this kind of
Mhm.
happens, you know, where like you get these same movies like White House Down and then whatever the other one was, and then
Yeah.
you know, just weird. Anyway,
Good movie. My only problem was I saw it, 3 weeks after seeing The Covenant, which was amazing. So that kind of, you're just like, I saw the better version of this.
and
But
natural comparison, you have to
yeah,
compare them.
yeah, it wasn't a bad movie. Totally entertaining. Gerard Butler delivers. I am super psyched. I do have my ticket for The Flash. I do have my ticket for Oppenheimer, and I have my ticket for Transformers next week. And I am psyched to watch all of those movies.
Yeah, I'm pumped for Oppenheimer. I'm a huge, I mean, obviously, I don't know who doesn't like Christopher Nolan
I
movies.
actually got it in 70 millimeter to watch it in all of
you're
its
so
glory.
lucky. Yeah, dude, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Kind of want to come watch it with you.
Well, let's do it.
So,
It's
well, or
actually
we can
week of
just,
Comic-Con. It's the week of Comic-Con.
if you want, we'll just get some $3,500 headsets and watch it that way.
Yeah, that sounds better.
No, I'm kidding.
We'll spend $7,000 to watch a movie we could go watch.
Yeah,
for $20.
that sounded more ridiculous the more I thought about it. I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So it doesn't matter. Those headsets aren't dropping until 2024 anyway. But that's it for our podcast this week. We just wanted to thank everybody so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. But more than anything, we talked about some crazy news and things that are going on in the film industry today. So I'm very interested to hear what you, our listeners, are thinking. And then I actually want to hear from you guys. I just miss you. So I don't know about you, CP. Do you miss just like opening up
weird
Instagram
not doing this show for a couple weeks. I always
Yeah,
get
like,
weirded out. Like
I miss
something's
Ivor.
missing from your life.
Like Ivor, send me
That's
just
what it
send me
was.
a DM.
Ivor. That's who's missing, man.
Yeah, I've been talking
And
to
Drucker
Drucker
and all
about
these
like
people.
NBA finals stuff, but like Ivor, I miss you, man. Like just send me a DM or something and say hi. Or maybe I'll send you one. I don't know. Like we gotta get back out there. So I just miss all you guys and the comments each week. So hopefully we can get that going again. But to continue the conversations, go to filmmakerscompass.com where we have a feed of all of the episodes of the show as well as all of our social media links and links really to anything that we're hooked up to. But you can follow the show at Film Comp Podcast, and you can follow me at Big Kid D-Man.
And you can follow me at NDCal5. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Filmmakers Compass Podcast. We will see you back here next week. Until then, keep watching movies.